It's, the fact is that you live in a country where 80 roughly percent of the population believes something that, we don't. Which means probably 80% of the professors that you've had as well, maybe not that high, because there is some negative correlation with not intelligence, education, sorry. But a significant portion of them have probably believed all kinds of stuff. And your science teachers probably believed things and even disbelieved things that they taught you. The thing about religious belief is that people are particularly good, often they're particularly good, at compartmentalizing it, keeping it entirely separate. It doesn't, like when Ryan called and said that, he didn't think this negative belief was going to have, any significant impact. Well, it's always going to have some impact, and there's always the potential for it to do tons of harm. But you can, through diligence, make sure, strive to keep that belief separate from other things. In much the same way that, using my coding example, you could just not use that particular constant in a different function.
Yeah, it just goes away.
It's a weird little way of, I don't know. To me, and this is one of the reasons why I briefly said that I didn't believe Ryan. I've said before that, when a theist tells me I believe this, I tend to believe them. I'll take them at their word. Now, more and more, depending on what the claim is, I find that I don't believe them. And what I believe is true instead is that, well, we've talked before about Dennett's belief in belief, but I think it goes beyond that, in that they're professing that they believe this and not actually accepting that it's true. They're kind of dipping their toe in the water to find out, I'd like to have a worldview that's consistent with reality. And one of the ways that I can do that is to compare my worldview to somebody else's. And where they differ, we can kind of go back and forth and see which one matches with reality. Now, if you actually care, that's as good a method as any. If you're in a position where this particular belief is so protected and segregated, then you're not going to benefit from it. You're going to be in a position that, for example, Ryan was in earlier, where he just had to say, I mostly want my beliefs to reflect.
Well, I think that happens a lot in Christian culture in America. If you've noticed how, Christians have Christian bookstores and Christian coffee houses and Christian music and Christian cable
side hugs
and Christian side hugs, and they have Christian bowling teams, whatever and all of this serves to just sort of create a subculture within the mainstream of American culture that allows them to just sort of isolate themselves.
And that'd be fine.
If
their subculture didn't leak out like a pollutant.
Well, but then you're talking about, it's homeschooling plays into this culture where, they essentially, depending upon how fundamentalist they are, the facts that they are teaching their kids are not necessarily facts, and then they expect these kids to go off into the world as adults and function. So, but you're right. You get this sort of insular little community that just doesn't want to hear a whole heck of a lot else. And then I think that's why you really get the lashing out when people like us and, Dawkins and Hitchens, and suddenly atheism becomes popular and they don't really know what to do about it. Yeah. And we see a lot of that reflected in some emails we get. Why do you guys even have a show? What do you care? I mean,
Yeah, and it sounds. Ken Ham said something similar about the atheist convention that's going on in Australia. Oh, a meaningless convention with a bunch of people talking about meaningless stuff without recognizing that it was all meaningless because they have a meaningless existence without God because there's no meaning. I don't think that word what you means what you think it means.
Yes, they don't. Yes, old Ken Ham just doesn't quite know what it means for something to have meaning.